Many of you might be wondering, how was Hinduism created? Well, the truth is, Hinduism wasn't created by a single person or during one specific time. Instead, it's a vast compilation of ideas, beliefs, and practices that have evolved over thousands of years, dating all the way back to the Indus Valley civilization. Why do we say this? Let's look at the evidence. One of the earliest clues is the Pashupati seal, which shows a figure seated in a meditative or yogic posture. While we've named it Pashupati today, what matters is the pose. It clearly resembles ancient yogic traditions. We've also found symbols like the swastika and lingam-like statues in the Harappan region. They might not have been called that back then, but their resemblance to later Hindu symbols is striking. Even ritual bathing practices seen in Indus Valley sites mirror those in Hinduism today. Now, this doesn't mean the Indus Valley civilization followed Hinduism as we know it, but it strongly suggests that early forms of Shaivism, the worship of Shiva, and yogic traditions likely began there. So, Hinduism appears to be an evolved descendant of these ancient practices. Now let's talk about the Aryan invasion theory and why it doesn't hold up. First, after the decline of the Indus Valley civilization, we don't see evidence of a major incoming empire or ruling class. What we observe instead is a gradual shift to smaller settlements, likely caused by climate change or internal issues, not an invasion. Second, if the Aryans were truly dominant, why are their gods like Indra and Agni placed below the major Hindu trinity, Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma? In their original pantheon, those gods were supreme, but in Hinduism, they became lesser deities. No conquering culture would lower its own gods. This supports the idea that the Aryans were migrants, not conquerors. Third, Hinduism absorbed countless tribal and local deities, creating a spiritual system rich with diverse, often unrefined rituals. That's what makes it so unique and hard to fit into a single origin story. But like any ancient system, Hinduism also evolved, and not always in ideal ways. One example is the Varna system, which originally classified people by profession: Brahmins, priests and teachers; Kshatriyas, rulers and warriors; Vaishyas, traders and merchants; Shudras, laborers and service workers. In ancient times, with no universal education, skills were passed from parent to child. Over generations, this occupational system hardened into the caste system, driven by growing wealth gaps and social barriers. This likely happened before the 5th century BCE, during a largely oral society. Now consider sati, the practice of widows self-immolating on their husband's pyre. It was never part of core Hindu scripture. It emerged much later, around the 10th or 11th century AD. Why? During Islamic invasions, widows were often targeted, and some communities began viewing them as vulnerable liabilities. Stories like Queen Padmavati's self-immolation became folklore and influenced certain communities. But even then, sati was extremely rare. Eventually, Raja Ram Mohan Roy led the movement to abolish it. The same goes for dowry. Early Islamic travelers in India noted that Hindu marriages didn't involve dowries. The custom was later adopted, possibly as a way for families to transfer wealth discreetly in times of political instability or foreign invasion. And dowry isn't unique to Hinduism. It has existed in Muslim, Chinese, and even Western cultures, where wedding gifts or wealth exchanges have long traditions. In the end, Hinduism is not a religion born from conquest or single doctrine. It's an organic, evolving philosophy shaped by geography, culture, and centuries of social change. Theories like the Aryan invasion are increasingly rejected by scholars who rely on archaeological and linguistic evidence. What we're left with is a much deeper, more nuanced origin story, one that reflects the complex